Man, I love going around just doing some normal detective work. What's over here? Huh. That's interesting. Hello everyone, today I'm going to talk to you about a little known indie game by the name of The Case of the Golden Idol. The Case of the Golden Idol is a point-and-click detective game developed by Color Gray Games and published by PlayStack that was released in October of 2022. Today I'm going to give my review and thoughts on this game, so be aware there will be spoilers. You have been warned. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, let's talk visuals. Now, some people might say the visual look of The Case of the Golden Idol is outdated. However, I disagree. I think the pixelated art style really adds to the look of the game. It's got a very unique look, and I think it captures upon that. The art style creates a sense of mystery, and I think the game with a different art style just wouldn't be the same. You would lose that sense of almost horror and the supernaturalness that the art style creates. Because it's so pixelated, you see the people, and they almost don't even look human. It's an uncanny valley of sorts, and it adds this sense of occultness and strangeness, especially in some of the later missions. This, along with the partial animation of some of the scenes, really creates the feeling that you're watching a second in time, and the animation, where it is, helps create more force and a more visceral impact upon certain portions of the scene, and helps focus your attention to where it really needs to go when you're playing the game. There are times where the bits of animation you see, the only bits that are animated, help point you to a clue or help solve a puzzle of something that you don't really know. So not only is it helping you grab your attention and get you more invested and showing motion and what's going on, it also is going to help you solve the puzzles that the game is giving you, and really helps focus your attention to where it really needs to be. When talking about the audio and music for The Case of the Golden Idol, there is not too much to talk about, because there is no voice acting in the game, and there is no really sound effects. The only audio you really will be hearing will be the background tracks for each of the different cases. Now, there can be more than one background track per case. In some cases, almost every single room will have a different soundtrack. It's just that besides that, there's not that much to talk about. Now, in terms of background tracks, they are pretty good. Not all of them are hits. Some of them sound a bit but they mainly do their job of getting you invested in the atmosphere of a scene and just being something to listen to while you're playing the game. So all in all, while I would say it's nothing remarkable, the music in this game, I would say that it serves its purpose and does a good job of being a nice little accent to the main portion of the game, which is the gameplay and the story. Okay, let's talk gameplay. The gameplay is divided into two main sections: the exploring section and the thinking section. The exploring section involves you clicking around the scene and getting details and information about what is going on, along with collecting words, which will go in the word bank at the bottom of the screen. The number of words you have collected next to the total amount of words in the level is shown in the bottom right corner. Once you've collected all the words you need, you can move on to the thinking section, in which you plug words into different panels, which, once filled out, will reveal if they are filled in correctly, incorrectly, or almost correctly. In order to beat a level, you simply need to fill in the leftmost panel. So as you can see, the gameplay loop is pretty simple. You go around in the exploring section collecting words from around the scene, and then go to the thinking section and plug them in to fill out the different panels. Now, while this loop is quite simple, The real complexity of the gameplay comes in the deduction aspect. The real fun of the game is the deduction you have to do. So while the gameplay loop is simple, it's actually a ton of fun because the deduction part in your head is where really all the magic happens. The story of the Case of the Golden Idol is a well-made and interesting story full of twists and turns, and is probably one of my favorite parts of the whole game. So, without further ado, I'll begin with Chapter 1, Case 1, An Abrupt Termination of Contract. Our story begins with quite an exciting scene, as we see a man getting pushed off a cliff as a storm closes in from behind. This is quite an exciting scene to start the gameplay on, but I think it sets a good tone and gets the player hooked into the action right away. From observation, we quickly learn the names of these two men, one Dr. Oberon Geller and Esquire Albert Cloudsley. After investigating the scene a bit, we learn that the two men were on an expedition to Monkey Paw Island and had agreed to split the profits of the expedition. Now, reading the agreement, you will notice something quite strange. That Oberon Geller has rights to 1/3 of all valuables and any golden idols found. I find this quite a strange proposal indeed. Why golden idols specifically? And sure enough, if you check their bags, you will find that they found treasures and a golden idol on the island. This already makes me suspicious to the intentions of Oberon Geller, but as we can see in the scene, Albert Cloudsley also seemingly thought so too, and pushes Oberon Geller off the cliff for reasons unbeknownst to us, though apparently he seemed to fear that Oberon Geller would backstab him. One thing I enjoy in particular about this case is the naming of the island where Albert Cloudsley and Dr. Oberon Geller are doing their expedition to, which is Monkey Paw Island. For those of you unaware, a monkey paw is a literary device that usually backfires on its owner, and while originally granting power, ultimately leads to its owner's demise. This can almost immediately be seen in the first case through the death of the man who got the golden idol, and this pattern will repeat throughout the entirety of the game. In the next case, the untimely passing of a rural gentleman, we see a markedly different scene from the first one. There are no obvious signs of foul play, and instead we just see a man dead, with a head wound, admittedly, but nothing else to make us suspect it could be murder. After looking around the scene, we can quickly learn that this man is Sebastian Cloudsley. He shares the same last name as Albert Cloudsley from the first mission. He was probably a relative of his somehow. Also, if we look at the date, we see that it is quite a number of years in the future, so this man could be his son or a nephew of some sort. He also seems to be in possession of the golden idol, as it is clearly visible on a pedestal by a window in his room. The only other things of note are that he clearly seemed to be researching something to do with spontaneous combustion, along with a strange mask in the corner of the room. We also can see that a horse is running free in his yard, which is quite strange. There is also a blood trail that travels across the room to the man lying at his bed. Doing some quick deduction, we can quickly figure out what happened. The man fell off his horse while hunting and managed to crawl back into his room before dying in his bed of a head injury. Compared to the first mission, this seems a much more trivial death than the first, which was clearly murder. And the only two really similarities between the missions are that this Sebastian Cloudsley guy was clearly a relative of Albert Cloudsley from the first mission, and that both were in possession of the golden idol. Before we can begin the third case, a cloaked figure comes down from the top of the screen. When the figure is clicked on, we get to see a short scene play out before us, in which 3 figures stand before Sebastian Cloudsley's grave, most likely in mourning. We have not seen these 3 figures yet. However, as we are quick to learn in the third case, they will become key figures in the story to come. In Case 3, the dramatic departure of an outsider, the story of the game really starts to come together. The scene we witness is one of the will reading of Sebastian Cloudsley, the man who died in the previous case. There are 4 inheritors present: Edmund Cloudsley, Rose Kubert, Willard Wright, and Peter Batley. Also present are the will reader Nicholas Maker, Edmund Cloudsley's new assistant David Gorin, and Peter Batley's 2 assistants Adam and James Pear. Looking around the house, it's clear it's seen better days. The wallpaper is ripped in some areas, and the house in general looks unkept and in decay. There are wine bottles scattered throughout, and by the fireplace we can see the torn up remains of what was Sebastian Cloudsley's will, along with papers notifying Peter Bately of his debt. Putting two and two together, we can quickly deduce that this is Peter Bately's home, and that he was in a large amount of debt. We can also see that he probably had a gambling addiction, as we can see multiple stubs for horse racing bets. Looking at the pieces of the will on the floor, we can quickly get a good idea of why Peter Bately might have ripped it up. As opposed to Rose Kubert, who got Sebastian's savings, land, and the manor, and Edmund Cloudsley, who got research notes, Peter Bately, who was in severe financial distress, only got a book of aphorisms to help provide him direction in his life. Peter Bately was mad against this slight and desperate for money, so he, along with his two servants, Adam and James Payer, tried to steal the golden idol from Willard Wright, who was an associate of Sebastian's. Willard Wright, though, instead of handing over the golden idol, took it out, at which point James Payer spontaneously combusted. Willard Wright, whoever he was able to use the power of the golden idol to set the man aflame. Looking on Willard Wright's person, we can see that he had a piece of paper telling him how to make spontaneous combustion occur. It is possible these are the very same notes that Sebastian Cloudsley made when before we heard that he was making some breakthrough in the area of spontaneous combustion with his research. While Adam Payer is getting set aflame, we can see Edmund Cloudsley gazing on with a very dubious look in his eyes. I doubt this will be the last time we see Edmund Cloudsley. Now, to tell any more of the story would be a great disservice to the game, for half the fun of the game is finding out where the story goes. So instead of explaining the entire story, I'm just going to leave it right here and encourage you to buy The Case for the Golden Idol and play it yourself, and really get to experience the game, the mystery, the enjoyment, and just have a great time with the game. I thank you for watching and enjoying my video, and I hope you learned a bit more about and are intrigued by The Case for the Golden Idol. It's a great indie game, and I highly recommend it. But if you have any more questions, don't be afraid to ask me again.